Okay.
It was such a big crowd.
Yeah. So I will sit down and show you my screen.
Some of the breaks between the sessions
Yeah, but
exist.
we are competing against DevOps. So.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's way more sexy than cloud. So today we will talk about the cloud and Cosa. Maybe you don't know Cosa. Cosa is our company, is a boutique software development company, as my CEO loves to call it, because we really tailor the software we build on customers. So we are very, very customer focused. So we are on the market since 2010. We are 7 people spread all over Italy, so we have born as a distributed company with offices in Rome, but distributed all over Italy. And we are Claris Platinum Partner since 2010, day 0. And we are certified from FrameMaker 9 to 19, 12 certifications.
Do you have any medical customers
Yeah.
in the medical?
Yes, we are.
Good, good.
So my name is Nicola Gervasi. I'm the tech lead.
Okay.
Ah, okay. I forgot to say that we are an AWS Select partner.
Yeah.
I'm the tech lead, so I started a lot of time ago with FileMaker. I quit in 1999. I kept smoking, but I quit FileMaker and went through a lot of technologies. And now I'm settling on web development, so web application development and architectures. So we build architectures on AWS. So we will talk about the good cloud citizen. So how it all started. We have a lot of customers, small and medium companies, and all of them had one server, one FileMaker server. Many on premises, some on cloud providers all over Italy, and we needed to do something to move them to the real cloud. So I won't waste too much time on the usual advantages of cloud, so pay as you go, OpEx, not CapEx. But I would focus on connect from anywhere and save on power bills, because COVID and war remembered us how important it is to be really able to connect from everywhere and how does power bills hurt. But working on this, we found out one more thing that was very, very important, and we internally call it save the client from himself. Because many small businesses simply cannot run a data center. They don't have the expertise, they don't have the resources, and they don't understand how painful it could get when something fails, because computer fails every time. So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And when they fail, if you don't have appropriate procedures for disaster recovery, it can be very, very painful. So what we really wanted to achieve was the good cloud. So not hosting, not putting our servers somewhere, but a cloud that could be very and really helpful for the clients and for the company as well. And the answer was AWS. Amazon Web Services, I guess all of you know who they are. Let's get back. How did we start? We set the requirements, and we ended up with 3 simple requirements. Reliability, obviously, because computer can fail even in the cloud, even in AWS. Hardware does fail every day, but they have a very open and transparent approach. So they notify you. If hardware breaks, they tell you, and you can react. So each of their data center is very redundant and split in 3 separated areas called availability zones. All of them are interconnected, and you can choose on which one or on how many of the zones you want to deploy. If an hardware fails, you simply can redeploy on a new hardware, and it's a matter of clicks. If network fail, you can redeploy on the different availability zone inside the same data center, and you don't lose connectivity. So reliability was perfect in AWS. because the worst downtime is the unexpected downtime. Then second requirement was security, because in the last years we noticed a huge amount of attacks on private companies, private and public companies. In this fall, 2 months ago, Ferrari was hit. GSE, that is the public company in Italy that runs and operates gas strategic resources, and you know how important that is, got hit and was done for 1 month. So security was a requirement, a very strong requirement. And AWS gives you everything you need if you want to build a secure system, because you can use VPC, virtual private cloud, you can use pre-shared keys, you can use encryption, and manage or not manage the keys, because sometimes it's dangerous to let people not used to manage encryption keys, so they can manage them for you. They give you all that you really need to build a safe environment. They have a service that we use a lot called Guard Duty, and Guard Duty checks all the network traffic, looking for known patterns of attack, so brute force attack and stuff like that. And it even scan your volumes, looking for malware. So it was definitely the good choice for security. And then scalability, because some solutions are simple, some change requirements over time, some are on a seasonal basis, so you really need to be able to vertically scale quickly. And using EC2 from AWS allows us to scale very, very quickly. So in a matter of minutes, we can enlarge the server or reduce the server as we go. And then monitoring, because if you don't monitor your infrastructure, you don't know what is going on, and you cannot react quickly to requirements change. So monitoring is a key. So having these 3 requirements met, the choice was obvious, and it was AWS. And why? Because we didn't need an hosting provider. We didn't want to run our server on a private cloud somewhere. We wanted infrastructure as a service. So we wanted to be able to build our own infrastructure, our own network with our own rules, somewhere virtual, reliable, secure, and affordable. This is infrastructure as a service, the wall. AWS gives you all the small bricks, so you can really rebuild the physical data center. You have servers, you have routers, you have cables, network, rules, whatever. All the small pieces to build a data center in the cloud. So this was the solution for us. You can integrate whatever you want, you can customize. You're not running your solution, your server in someone else's environment. So this is about hosting anyway. So the most visible aspect of our offering is hosting. It's just the tip of the iceberg, because we have a lot above that, below that. So after several dozen of deployments, we ended up standardizing on good practices. And I'm going to show you some feature of Cosa FileMaker hosting offering. So we always run in isolated VPC. That means that each server lives inside a dedicated virtual private cloud with external firewall rules and secure and separated from the others.
Separated from other things of the same client.
Absolutely.
Because we, in this July, the night between the 31st of July and August 1st, we got a client that got attacked by malware. They got one server that was managed by their accounting company, was encrypted, but they lost all data. Our FileMaker server was in the same environment, but in a different VPC. Everything is fine.
Not only the server, also the storage, their company storage, and I'm talking about 3 terabytes of data was in a Cosa managed VPC. I wasn't hit. All the rest was encrypted, and it cost them a lot of money to retrieve it. Then dedicated EC2 instances. So we decided to deploy FileMaker Server on Linux on dedicated instances because we wanted to be able to scale up and down quickly and to be able to customize the instances for the client. So keep in mind, we were not designing and hosting services for third parties. We were building an infrastructure for our own clients and our own servers as well. EBS volumes, so all the data stays in encrypted at rest EBS volumes. They're fast, they're secure, then they can be reattached to other instances if needed. They can be snapshotted incrementally for backups. Third level domain included, so we include a third level domain.
You are one point back.
On 1 point back, not here, okay, sorry. So third level domain will include an SSL certificate, or the client can bring his own and use his own domain name and certificate. Backups replica to S3, so all the backups are replicated to S3 bucket, and the customer can download at will each database if needed, and he can decide his own retention policy, 30 days, 45 days, whatever. Network traffic analysis is what I was talking about earlier, is analyzing all the network traffic in the VPC and AWS as a service that scan the traffic, pass it to an IA system, and detects known threats. Malware volume scans is another service from AWS that we integrated in our offer that allows to take automatic snapshot of your data in parallel without interruption of the service, and those snapshots are scanned for virus and malwares. And then real-time monitoring. So we decided to use CloudWatch, that is an AWS service, not only for monitoring the server, so CPU, memory, and disk, and network, but also to store all the FileMaker server logs. So all the logs are sent to CloudWatch, and those logs are in a only place and can be searched.
And we receive notification about every
And
downtime and things. So.
we have set up notification to the client and to our support team if anything goes out of the limit that we choose for the server. And then we built an ecosystem, because when you standardize on good practices, so you build a nice infrastructure and you repeat it for several clients, then you can really build an ecosystem of services. So the first one we built is the backup replication system. So it's a software we wrote that runs in Node.js and gets installed near FileMaker that monitor backups, and as soon as the backup is done, doesn't matter if it's a scheduled backup or a manual backup, it takes the backup, it zips every database as a single zip file, the attachments folder got zipped as well, and sends the copy to S3. Then we decided to write a web application to give the client control over his own server, so he can monitor the network traffic, he can download the backups if he needs to. So this is a way to allow some clients and customers that don't need really to access the admin API pages, the FileMaker admin pages, to have some sort of control over their own servers. Because when you work with small companies, sometimes you really don't like and don't want them to access the admin pages. So this way they can download on their own their backups, they can monitor the usage, and some
databases are open, which are closed.
how many databases, how many clients are connected. So the key information that you let them access without all the rest.
And then there is a security concern too, because usually when you give the client the console, the password of the console, the first thing they do is they change the password, something like my cat's name 123. And by the way, that's the way they got the malware, because we created the EC2. We gave a password which was something like 48 characters, and they changed it with a very stupid password.
Yep, unfortunately.
Yeah, for that.
Then,
Ask about the infrastructure?
Yep.
A brief question, because I know that Amazon provides also Macs as servers. Do you use Apple's there? As
no,
servers?
absolutely
No?
not.
No.
Okay.
We run everything in Linux.
Have you seen the prices?
It'll be expensive, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are very expensive, and then
Yeah, of
they are tailored to do basic rendering.
Yeah.
There are services that are taught to do rendering.
Now we use Linux machines, so Ubuntu now, and the size depends on the client requirements. Usually we use the T series because it's very handy for office application, because at night time nobody's using the server, so you build up credits that can be spent the day after, so it's very cost effective.
And we did some tests and simulations using memory optimized and I/O optimized, and for normal users there is not much of a difference.
Then another thing that is needed by 90% of all solutions we've been working on is notification. So everybody needs to send out email, SMS, and the such. So we wrote a software called Hermes that can send emails, SMS, or place voice calls. You can call it from FileMaker using a simple REST API, and you can send on the fly, or you can schedule a sending. So you can schedule to send an email tomorrow, an SMS to a client the other day, or you can use it for MFA, so double factor authentication, and all the such. And there is a front end, a small web application that you can embed in a web viewer, so you can also monitor the sendings and show, based on your FileMaker record, how many messages got sent related to that FileMaker records, and how many emails and how many voice calls were placed.
Add a few things, details. That project started because we have a lot of problems with FileMaker notifications, because they are behind the firewall. There are a lot of problems. If they are behind the reverse proxy, it's nearly impossible to have it work properly. If the client uses Google Workspaces, there are a lot of problems. Last time I configured FileMaker notification with Google Workspaces, it took me 1 day, and after 2 weeks it stopped working. I never know why, with no apparent reason. So this is basically all. It has all the functions that Nicola said, and then it's very easy. It's nothing to configure, because you have to call an API and send them the addresses, the subject, and the body. And now we are as soon as Meta will allow us, we will integrate WhatsApp too. So we can do everything in the same place.
Yeah, and consistently, for all servers, for all solutions. Then we were able to build a bridge that has two functions, basically. So now with FileMaker it's quite easy to consume web services, because you can place a REST call and it's not so difficult. But the difficult part is when you expect a callback. So think about Stripe. Stripe is managing payments, and you want to receive a callback to the FileMaker server when you got a payment. You can't do that with FileMaker, because you cannot just set up an API with a standard post method with standard headers and the such. So we wrote a build, we wrote a bridge application to receive the callback and dispatch that to FileMaker. Second usage is for old and difficult and unfriendly web services. Think about SOAP. I don't know if many of you had to work with SOAP. It's really painful to work with SOAP. And unfortunately, many, especially in Italy, public offices are still using SOAP web services. Or some web services are sending you the result as CXML. There is something that you need a Rosetta Stone to understand.
Yes,
So
XML
we can.
is a kind of a standard in exchanging data between companies, orders, warehouses, and so on. So they will never change it. Or in FileMaker, it's impossible to receive a CXML. So we build that application that receives the code, the CXML,
Translate it to JSON and send it back to FileMaker. So first feature is receive a callback from an external service. So event-driven architecture. Transform it if you need it in JSON, that it's easier to be managed in FileMaker, and then call FileMaker using the data API. Second feature is really to just work on the body, on the result of the call, and translate it to JSON, usually, or CSV. So we have two options. So this is what we meant when we were thinking about the good cloud. So a cloud architecture that has advantages, the usual one for the client, but also advantages for the software company that is helping the client. It must be easily customizable and give us access to all those services that AWS is ready to be used, and it's a lot of stuff. So IA services, image recognition, text recognition, queues, DynamoDB, a lot of services from AWS can be integrated easily and securely because you're not outside. You're using those services inside your VPC. So that makes it easy, affordable, and secure. And you can customize whatever. So why didn't we go the way of container? Container are perfect when you need to scale horizontally. So you have a web application, you don't know how much people will be using that, use containers. 2 is enough, you have more traffic, you deploy other 3 containers and you shrink and whatever. But it's only about scaling. So we weren't building such a thing. So we decided to stick to EC2. EC2 is a virtual machine, maybe sounds a bit less cool than containers, but it's a real virtual machine, it's not shared. So you're not running a lot of containers on one hardware. You're running a virtual machine and you have no performance limit, and you can scale vertically because FileMaker cannot scale horizontally. So it makes no sense to use container. You can scale vertically, have a faster server if you need, and you can customize it. So how did we manage to send the backup to S3? By installing Node.js and a proprietary software on the server. What if the customer has another server application that must live inside the EC2? We can install. So it's not a predefined and very strict hosting services. It's infrastructure as a service. So we start with an EC2, but we can change it to whatever we want. Clients can have different FileMaker versions, even different operating system version. We are running some server on CentOS. We are investigating if we can use AWS Linux. So we can customize however we want. And we have a VPC, so it's our environment. In that environment, we can do whatever we want. So you need SQL. We can deploy a SQL server. We can deploy an RDS server managed by AWS, so MySQL, Postgres. You need to store temporal data. We can use TimeStream, that is a time series database. So you can do whatever in your VPC because it's your infrastructure. And so this is so easy to customize and makes it very different from an hosting solution. So no limits on integration whatsoever.
5 minutes.
5 minutes? Thank you. So really no limits. We managed to even work with IoTs and machineries from a production company, receiving data from IoT and production machinery over 2 different standards of communication directly to the FileMaker server inside the VPC. And store all the data is every 5 seconds, so a lot of data in a time series database that can be accessed from FileMaker. We can import and move data. So this is what we mean when we say boutique software development. So our service is really focused on the customer and its needs. And I'd say this is all.
Yeah.
So if you want more details, we'll be tomorrow there and today at the booth. And if you have a question, I'm here to ask.
What's the starting price?